welcome to Willena Crochets. This podcast is about my love of crocheting and sharing that with you. So let's have fun crocheting. For episode 20, I thought I would do Crochet Cozy Home. I will be recovering and recuperating. I thought I would focus on things that would make my home comfortable while I'm doing this. Thank you to new and returning viewers and my subscribers. So let's begin. What am I wearing? I am wearing my Cedar crochet top, in which it was 90 degrees in New York, and I decided I need something cool so that I could wear. So I created this top here with single and double crochet, and you see it's a pattern of shell stitches. So I used my directional crochet where I focused on the center panel first and then worked my way outside to complete the sides. And the back has a little treat because it was so warm and hot. I decided that I would do a little lacy stitch, and I will show you a picture here of the back of the top so that you can see I use a variety of stitches, and I use one stitch pattern to create that top. Okay, so the stitch pattern I use for this top is this one here that I got off of Pinterest. And what you have to be mindful is that the schematics for this one shows you a variety of stitches of single crochet, double crochet, chain stitches, and you think that the top is going to stay completely in a rectangle form. However, when you go to this pattern here, right, it adds so many stitches, it starts to flare. So here on my top, on the bottom, it flares a little bit because when I did the back, when I added the extra row of stitches on these two rows, it made the top flare out. So to create the flare in the front, I just added an additional rows of shell stitches so that I could have a little lacy stitch coming from the back. And I'll show you another picture of the back so that you can see how this flared out. In this particular pattern, it called for about 10 double crochets. I reduced it to 8 double crochets with a chain in between, and it still flared out it still flared out a bit. And so that's what you have to be mindful when you follow patterns like this, to make sure that the number of stitches is not going to change the shape of the design. And the yarn that I used for that pattern were the Cedar Cotton DK, and this is 100% cotton, and this is like a size 2. So I usually make little squares so that I know what the yarn feels like and how it looks. So as you can see, the size of the yarn right here, and I used it in this burnt orange color, a bright orange, sorry, and then a rust color. But because I ran out of the yarn and I didn't want to purchase any more, I had purchased some yarn from Ice Yarn. This was this amigurumi yarn, and then this yarn worked perfectly with the top. So as you can see, I used it here, and then on the back part I used it here on the back, and it worked perfectly with the colors that I had chosen. So I was glad that I could locate this and use it in my top without purchasing more yarn. To do pillows, blankets, and some wall hangings, and I'm gonna share that with you, and let's begin. So here are some of the pillows that I created using scrap yarns around my crochet room, and I didn't buy any new yarns for this. I thought I would just use the yarns that I had, and here are some of the pillows that I created. One of the pillows I created was this tan and beige pillow, and I used some yarns that I had. It's made with wool, cotton, and this is that soy cotton yarn that I had. I'm sorry, soy silk yarn I had, and I love fur yarn, so I had to add a little fur with the black. So this is the front, and then this is the back. And all I did was just look for different shades of yarns in this type of tan brown color to create the pillow. The pillow form that I used came from Michael's when I ordered about 6 pillow forms, and this is the size of the pillow form. So you didn't have to stuff it because that takes a while. That takes a lot to stuff. So I just love the pillow forms because then you can just slip cover these pillows over, and then you can always leave an opening. So if you want to wash it or change the pillow, you can. So some other pillows that I created are this denim one, which I just found all my denim yarn, and some of the yarns you might recognize as the Rowan denim, and this is the Barocco. And then I used some type of paper yarn here in the beige to go around. So this is the front, and this is the back that features Lion Brand's jeans yarn. The next pillow that I truly love is this pillow here, in which I use the fur yarn, and I'll put the names of some of the yarns down there. This is the fur yarn from Knit Picks, and I just love this yarn. It's nice and fluffy. It reminds you of fur, but it's fake fur, so I love it. I use some of the Barocco suede. Here's some acrylic yarn, and then I used Lion Brand's light blue yarn in the design. And then in the back, I carried the colors also, which I used the blue jeans yarn with some multicolor tan and brown yarn, and just finished it with acrylic off-white yarn. Another pillow I created was this one here, in which I used this variegated cotton yarn from Lily's. They don't make this yarn anymore, and I love this yarn. It just reminds me of the tropics, the beach, and I love creating with this yarn, but they discontinued. So I put it inside the pillow, and then just found other yarns that I had that were similar to the colors in the original one. And in the back changes up just a little bit, where I used a yarn that was a little bit darker in the color scheme, and then used the orange just to bring it out a little bit more, and then surrounded with beige. The last pillow I created was a Tapestry crochet design. Here, what I just used a variety of shapes and designs, and this is 4-ply worsted weight acrylic yarn. I used blue, red, black, gold. I love the gold yarn. It always brings out the colors more. I used a checkered pattern here. I used a checkered pattern here in black and white, and used different designs. And then on the back, it just carried through. So I just made one long strip and then folded it. So now it's folded, and then if I want to take out the pillow form, all I have to do is just open it and pull the pillow form out. And I just overlapped them and then just went around in a variegated, I just went around with blue and white alternating the stitches. So this is the pillow again. Here are a couple of blankets that I made. I used the granny square because that's an easy stitch to use, and it creates beautiful designs. So what I did is I started with a single crochet center in that in the Lily crochet cotton yarn, which is 100% cotton yarn, in the magenta, orange, and white colors. And then, just to break it up a little bit, I created a fuzzy circle to sew in the middle. So it makes it look like a little flower. And then I created individual granny squares and then connected them here. And then surrounded it with granny squares on the outside, on the sides, and then, which is basically directional crochet starting from the center and then working your way in different ways around the square. And then I finally went around with several rows in the pink, white, and that variegated lily yarn. I think the blanket came out nice. I'll post a picture so you can see the full blanket, but it matches the pillow because you can see that same pattern here that you see here in the blanket. What I like about the variegated yarn is no matter how you crochet it, sometimes it doesn't crochet up the same way. So here, depending on the number of stitches, it created this pattern here. As in the pillow, because I used less stitches, it created this pattern. So it just depends on how many stitches you create going across that alters the pattern. I think that's what makes it interesting and fun. But it still gives me that beach feel. I love that yarn. I wish they would bring it back. The next blanket I created was a black and white blanket surrounded by a variegated green and brown yarn. So what I did is I created a hexagon center. And then I decided to give it like a little flower impression. So I went around the outside with single crochet to keep it raised. So a little surface crochet I created for the center. Then I surrounded it with black and white. And then when it got to a certain length with the single crochet, I switched to the granny square and went around in with the granny square. It's a little ruffly, but I like it that way. I mean, they all don't have to be like straight. And I think it came out really nice with the hexagon. So I was kind of busy this month, and I went to create different wall hangings and just focus on different squares and rectangles as opposed to making something really big. And I decided that I would use several patterns that I found on Pinterest. Some of them come from the braceletbook.com, and I'll post a link so that you can see it. So one of the first designs that I decided to do was this one here, but I decided to do it in shades of orange, and this is the pattern here. And you can make a wall hanging here. All you have to do is stick a stick through it and hang it up. And I think it came out really nice. The next pattern that I created was this pattern here. It's a face that shows like the nose and the mouth. And because this pattern was so small, I had to enlarge it. So I enlarged it to here. And I created my own design palette color pattern so that I could follow and show the repeats of the colors. And I decided to do it in shades of orange. So this is the pattern here. As you can see the face with the nose. I thought it turned out really nice. So there's another one you could do a wall hanging with. If you want to add tassels, you can. Or just post it to a foam board and you can hang it. The next pattern that I found off of Pinterest was this pattern here, and I'll leave a link to the lady. They have many different patterns, and I thought I would choose this one. And here, it's on graph paper, so you see the background color here, and then the face is inset on the background. But for a wall hanging, I decided that I would eliminate the background of it and just focus on the face. So that means that I have to start here counting and then do the increases as I come to the beginning or the end of each row. And this is how the pattern turned out. So this is the lady here. And I think she came out really nice. And you eliminate the background by just focusing on the face and doing your increases and decreases as you go to each row. And when I got to the hair, I wanted to add a little bit more texture. This is the way the hair came out, just plain. And to add more texture, I just did a bunch of chain stitches and strands, and then tied them together and then created the hair. And then what I did is for the head wrap, I did a little surface crochet just to let it pop more so that it looks like it's tied on her hair. Sorry, tied on her head as opposed to just sitting there on her head. Other tapestry crochet pattern I did, and I just focused on tapestry crochet for the month of May to make pillows or just to make squares for blankets, but I was just more interested in just crocheting and having fun so that I could create blankets later with the different squares. So the next pattern that I created was this lips pattern here, and I think it came out really nice, and came from the Rowan Knitting and Crochet book, issue number 70. And I would have created more. So this is the pattern here. So these are several patterns that I wanted to create. So you can see the lips, they have the eyes, they have the cat, they have the flower. So I wanted to create all these designs. However, you have to go to a copy place to make copies because the print in the book is so tiny for me, and I struggled just a little bit to create the lips. You can see it here, how small the pattern is, and I tried to follow it there, but I knew I wouldn't be able to create the rest of the patterns in here from there. So I'm just waiting to go to the copy center so I can make more, make copies of the designs to finish the patterns that I want to make, and then create just a giant blanket. So here, sorry. Here are the lips one more time. So now let's go to acquisition. Some of the things that I acquired came from my crochet meeting, in which someone had cleared out their knitting and crochet yarn book stash and brought it to the meeting, and everyone was welcome to take whatever they wanted or how many they wanted free of charge. So I decided to take 2 books, and one of them is this one here, which has different various color work. So you can see the front, and this is the back, and then inside they have this color work for men. But what I like is I can alter the color work for 2022, and I love just changing colors. I love the beautiful colors, mixing and matching. So this, I will choose a project from here, probably the first one, so that you can see how you can use a book from the past in 2022. The next book is this one from Mission Falls. I fell in love with the cow pattern, and I wanted to make those. So that's why I decided that I would take this book. to add to my collection to make. So they had a few other designs in here. They have this one here. And again, it has the color work. They have some regular knitting patterns, but because I don't knit, I'm not interested in those patterns. I'm just interested in the color works that they have. Some of my yarn acquisitions are from Knit Picks. I purchased this Dishy yarn in Fox color to go with my home to make some dish rags. So I purchased this one, and then I purchased this one in, sorry, it's upside down, in Clementine. I thought those colors were really nice to go with the color theme of shades of orange. Since I was making the other designs in orange, I thought I would get these two cotton yarns in orange as well. Other yarns that I purchased to help with my pillows was this from Ice Yarns. And this is the metallic paper cakes yarn. This is a lightweight yarn. And this is a yarn here. It takes a little bit to crochet with, but I think it comes out really nice in the design. I got it in this orange color, and then I got it in this brown color. So I think the two of them together nicely will make some nice pillows. It just changes up the pillow form a little bit, so it just gives you a different feel and a different texture to make the pillows. That concludes this episode. Thank you for watching. And remember, no yarn is off limits when crocheting. Have a great day.